What's up, guys? How you doing? Happy Monday. Happy Easter. I'm Nate Jackson. I'm here with Scott Shaffer. This is Off Field, powered by Accurate America. Boom.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Woohoo!
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Off Field. I am Scott Shaffer, and that is former Bronco / forever Bronco, Nate Jackson.
Yeah.
And we are here for another riveting show we got for you guys. And we're going to do some little recap. We're going to do like a kind of a rundown, I should say. Recaps later. Rundown is we're going to do some little Broncos draft, which is coming up this week on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And then also CU spring game coming up too.
That's right.
And we have
no, it's not coming up. Just happened.
It just happened.
That just happened on Friday. We're going to talk about it,
I wasn't
Scott.
there, guys. I wasn't invited, okay?
And we're going to do the top 5 draft picks of the George Paton era.
Yep.
George Paton's been here for 4 seasons. He's going into his 5th seasons. He's had 31 draft picks. And I know we're talking about the number 1 draft pick. Like, that's the only one that matters.
Sure.
But there's a lot of draft picks that the Broncos have. And we're going to talk about the best picks George Paton has ever had as a Bronco. And there's some pretty darn good ones, Scott.
We're going to do that, though, after we talk. We got some exciting news right now, okay?
Yeah.
We've got at Gorilla Sports, we've got a new online store.
What?
We've got merch, baby.
What
We've got merch. Welcome to the G store. Well, the GS store, I should say.
Welcome to the G spot.
So basically, we've got new merch for the Broncos, the Nuggets, the Avs, the Rockies, and it's just gonna go. We're gonna go gangbusters with this. We have like kind of a limited supply right now, but we're just churning out shirts left and right. We want to be like your number 1 spot for Denver sports apparel. That's what we want.
Love it. And you had a hand in doing that, Scott.
I do. I'm a graphic designer. I worked with the team here.
Yeah.
It's not just me. A bunch of people have their hands in on this, and it's been a fun process, and it's just going to get bigger and better.
Do graphic designers call themselves GDs?
I think it's funny if they do, because I'm like, are you so been out of time that you have to shorten graphic designer? I don't like it when graphic designers call themselves artists.
Why?
We're not artists.
What are you talking about?
We need aids. We need like computers and help and like little eye pickers and toners. If you make me draw or paint something, draw. It's going to be the worst thing you've ever seen in your life.
You can't draw?
I can't draw. I'm a terrible freehand artist.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a designer is what I say.
So look at that, kids.
Yeah.
You too can become a graphic designer
That's
with
right.
absolutely zero artistic skill.
You don't need anything.
No.
You need a computer. And not even minimal talent. The computer can fix
How'd
that.
you get into graphic design?
I started doing websites in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's not very exciting, but like, literally I redesigned the grade school website, and I was 14 years old, and it was the worst thing you've ever seen.
Wow.
But I was the only one who could do it.
So you've been a nerd for quite a long time.
Quite a long time.
Wow.
Never even took an art class in high school either.
Wow.
Just did all computer stuff.
Look at you. And look at you now.
Look at me now. I'm
Hosting Off Field.
Basically a show about the Denver Broncos when I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
You're a what?
I live in Denver, though.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the Broncos, because we don't care about the Chiefs. We
No, we
care
don't.
about the Broncos, but we also care about the Buffs, because
Yep.
we're here in Denver, and the Buffs had their spring game.
Real quick, though, before you get into the spring game, explain to people what the spring game is, what it's there for.
Yeah, the spring game. Great question, Scotty. The spring game is an opportunity for the football team who has been just doing practice stuff, and practices are very scripted. They're very tight. You do a certain period. You don't tackle. You don't call plays necessarily. You don't really get in the coaches are behind you in the huddle and all that stuff.
Yeah.
A spring game is an opportunity to, at the end of your spring football session, which is, it lasts 4 or 5 weeks. And these are real practices you're doing.
Sure.
It's an opportunity to cap that process by having a game against each other.
Sure.
So you pick teams, however you're going to do it. You split them up, and then you play against each other. And it's up to the coach to decide what parameters to set.
Yeah,
are we tackling? Are we bringing them to the ground?
Are you
we
going
keeping
100%,
score?
80%? Like,
you should be going 100%.
Quarterbacks ain't getting touched.
I did hear that on a radio station, not to be named, that I was listening to. I still have some friends who listen.
Sure.
And so I listened to a few shows, but they were talking about were they going 50%? Were they going 80%? So it's hard to get a read on what they looked like. I think these were people making some excuses for the Buffs because they looked like caca.
Yeah, I was going to say they probably look bad.
Right. But again, you just lost your all-world quarterback,
a Heisman Trophy winner,
and a Heisman Trophy winner who's playing both ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Those two guys took up a lot of air
Sure.
in that program. And not just them. You lost pretty much your whole receiver core. And that was a really deep receiver core. It wasn't just about Travis.
Yeah.
It was a really solid group. You lost some guys on defense, probably some guys hitting the portal.
Sure.
But the loss of Shador and Travis, I think, is a huge deal at CU.
Yeah.
And it was reflected on the field on Friday. Kind of looked sloppy, didn't really look that great. The timing between Juju, the new quarterback, and the receivers, not really there from what I saw. Now, I didn't watch the whole entire thing, but it's just like the question looms as to what Coach Prime is without his son around, just like the question looms, who is Shador Sanders without Coach Prime?
Sure.
So the NFL teams who are thinking about drafting Shador are asking that question. Is Shador going to be the same quarterback without his father essentially stacking the deck to make him successful?
Yep.
And is Coach Prime going to be able to be successful as a coach without his son being able to be the tip of the spear for him?
Sure.
And to execute his grand declarations, in a way. So I think all eyes are on that program. It was on ESPN too, Scott.
That's right. Great coverage.
The Deuce.
The Deucer.
And it was Colorado versus the Buffaloes.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Gold versus black.
Yep,
How are they
yep,
doing it? Yeah.
Yep.
So the thing is, can you tell much about a team from a spring game?
Yeah, I think you can a little
It's
bit.
so early though.
It is early, but it's never too early to sense some fight in the dog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do they,
So theoretically,
Yeah.
It's early, but effort, speed, passion.
Yeah.
You don't need to be too dialed in to do that.
Sure.
Go fly around, make some plays, have some fun.
Yeah.
Show me what you can do on the field. That's what I want to see as a coach.
And so basically,
I don't need you to be like executing everything perfectly,
Sure.
technically, all the plays locked in. What I need is to see some dogs out there,
Mhm.
see some guys go fight, not fight physically, but fight for these plays and see how bad you want it. Go make an impression. And they sold tickets to the thing. I mean, you remember last couple of years, this thing was damn near sold out.
Sure.
Now, indicative of hopefully it's not a slide in interest, but it wasn't sold out. There was tons of empty seats at Folsom Field on Friday. So I think Coach Prime understands that there is going to be a waning of interest in the program, and he's got to figure out how to keep that interest because he's being paid to keep that interest.
Mhm.
He signed a new contract because he's brought all the money in the eyeballs. If all of a sudden people don't care anymore because Travis isn't there and Shador isn't there and they're a middling football team, that's a problem. I think that might have been kind of why he decided to retire their numbers while they were still like not basically at the school.
Yeah.
Did you get your number retired in high school?
My number is still not retired. And
Damn.
I mean, I could look up a bunch of quarterbacks who had a better win percentage than Shador. So does that mean that they're getting their numbers retired
wow.
too?
Wow.
But also like none of the national championship teams, and I don't even think Cordell has his number retired there. And so I wanted to talk to you about this because spring game is fun, but Travis Hunter having his number retired, I think makes sense. I just think it's super early.
Yeah.
Even in the pros, they make you wait 5 years, even if you're first ballot.
Yep.
I think this is just I think they're scrambling from a PR perspective because they're losing their two biggest stars.
Yeah.
And I think that the Shador and the Travis thing, Travis is, I think, deserving.
You think he's deserving of getting it retired before he leaves?
No.
Okay.
I think he's
That's still
deserving of getting a retired number at some point.
Yeah.
I just think it's so early.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Shador is having his number retired.
I
understand that it's probably his dad pushing it.
His dad said the only reason why you guys care is because his last name is Sanders.
Okay.
He's saying he deserves it. And
then retire the last name. No more Sanders on the team. Okay. Retire the last name. I don't need his number retired because they're gonna remember him for all the greatness that he did. He doesn't need to have number 2 on the wall. Where do they put these numbers? I don't know.
They put him in the stadium. Yeah. Right up there. I mean, they're already up there. And
I just think it's premature.
Yeah. What do you think about, because Coach Prime has spoken about it a couple of times. He spoke about it last week where he was not really prepared and he said a lot of random stuff that didn't sit well with
That's
folks,
how you know that it's kind of bullshit.
Especially alumni. He kind of threw the athletic director under the bus. He was like, I'm praying for Rick George. Like Rick George, he's like, I don't have anything to say to the other alumni. I have nothing to say to them. Like, I'm praying for Rick George, who's the athletic director. Those were his comments. But yesterday what he said, and I think I sort of agree with some of this.
Yeah.
Now, does it apply to these two guys? I don't know. But he said, we live in a now world.
Oh.
You are now people.
Yeah.
Talking to the people in front of them. You're now people. Okay.
Sure.
We got to do what's right now and not wait What if something bad were to happen, an accident were to happen to one of, not these guys in particular, but to these guys who are greats, and they're limping across the stage, or can't, God forbid, can't even make it? What about that argument that we got to do it when we know, because you never know what's going to happen in the future? And I think like to his point about that, there's a ton of former NFL stars who had to wait and wait and wait and wait, and by the time they do get it, they are shells of themselves.
Steve Mongo McMichael is for the Bears. He's one of those guys. He basically got it in the hospital bed.
Randy Gradishar, who finally got it. Randy Gradishar, a tackling machine for the Broncos in the 70s, averaged over 200 tackles a season.
That's amazing.
It's incredible in a 14-game season, right? Randy Gradishar was head and shoulders the best tackler in the NFL for a decade.
Yeah.
And he had to wait until just this last year.
Yeah.
Now, why make him wait so long? Randy's not the same guy he was 20 years ago.
Sure.
He's an older gentleman, and now he has to, basically, you want to be able to do this when you're young and you're able to stand in front of people. And if it's in the NFL, you can say what you want to say and feel like yourself up there, and not feel like you can't find the words or you can't walk out there like the same man, right? I mean, they're making Mike Shanahan wait. Mike Shanahan's back-to-back Super Bowl champion. Only a handful of guys have done that. He won 3 in 5 years because he won one as
that seems personal and maybe even political too, right?
Yeah. And so, but isn't this also political, the decision by Coach Prime?
So I don't necessarily love the excuse of being like, we live in a now time and you're now people and we have to get this done now, because the same could be said for, first of all, that's just life. If things happen, that is unfortunate, and the politicking and the personal feelings are terrible. But what happens if you retire their numbers and then somehow they commit heinous crimes in the future? Are you taking those numbers?
Oh, Minority Report.
It's the opposite, though. It's the opposite of what he's saying. We have to hurry up and honor them. And then all of a sudden you got OJ in your hands and you're taking his Heisman away. You're taking his number off.
So you're saying don't retire these numbers in case they commit a murder.
I'm just saying I think that's a stupid thing to stand by. That's because I can just go the other way.
Yeah, I think Coach Prime's saying it's a now world and you're now people. We have to do it now.
And don't give me that pseudo marketing crap. I just hate that kind of stuff.
Well, because he doesn't think he'll be here that long.
Maybe not, because he probably doesn't want to coach anyone other than his own kid.
Dude, if CU, like, real talk, if CU sucks, if CU sucks this year, Coach Prime will leave.
He's gone.
Like, if he can't get guys to come anymore, like, because the juice is gone from those two incredible athletes leaving, he won't stay.
And then when he leaves, you have to retire his cowboy hat and his shades immediately.
Yeah,
because you don't know. We're living in now time, guys. We gotta get that cowboy hat on top of Folsom Field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's never been seen before the way that he's doing it.
Yeah.
People are pointing out 13 and 12 as a starter, Shedeur Sanders. But he did break 100 school records, I heard. What 100 school records are there? Like,
well, first of all,
how are there over 100?
First of all, it's a detriment to your past quarterback,
no,
CU.
No, it's not. How's that a detriment that he broke the record?
Well, okay, it's a different offense, I guess.
Incredibly different offense.
But if he's breaking 100, that's not a great look for CU quarterbacks.
No, that's not true. What it tells you is their style of football was geared towards making the quarterback break fucking records.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't geared toward winning football games. They won 13 out of 25 games.
Yeah.
Barely over 500, and broke 100 school records at quarterback position. What that tells you is you have tilted the game and tilted your game plan to benefit your quarterback, but not the team. They had no running game. They had a weak offensive line. And so it just shows you can go break records.
Yeah.
You can go put up numbers, but winning football games is a different thing. And creating a total team experience is a different thing.
I like that explanation, because you're saying that this offense is meant to break records. That's what it's meant to do. And so so then it should have been expected, maybe not 100 records, but records should have been expected to be shattered. So it's like every year where they're like, this is the most watched Super Bowl ever. I'm like, well, it should be
more people.
It should be. Yeah. And so
there's more TVs.
It's almost the same kind of device that's doing this for Shedeur. That's why he broke the records, because the offense was set to do that. And it shouldn't be surprising, I guess. I still think the 13 and 12 shines over a little bit more of that for a retired number.
Yeah, I think the folks who are CU fans look at it very differently than college football fans in the rest of the country. The college football fans in the rest of the country are skeptical of the kind of special treatment those guys got, or the special attention that those guys got, relative to the lack of wins and the lack of big games that they won, right? They played in one bowl game, they lost, they got smoked in that bowl game. And so, and yet you can't deny the sort of magnetic energy
you can't
that those guys brought.
I'm with you on that.
And so what matters more? I think it's just like a personal preference. What matters more when you are interested in football, when you're interested in sports? Is it the show?
Yeah.
Is it the energy? Is it the attention? Is it like what gets your blood boiling, and what gets the clicks, and what gets the talk, the conversation going? Or is it strictly about wins and losses like sports used to be about?
Sure.
But now it's not just about wins and losses, is it? Because Coach Prime signed a new huge contract, not based on wins and losses.
Yeah.
It's based on the energy and the attention he brings to the program.
And TV deals.
Yeah. And so either way, I think that the fate of Travis and Shedeur at the NFL level is going to really affect the way that Coach Prime's legacy is viewed, at CU. If those guys fall flat in the NFL, which I don't think is going to happen, but if they did, then it would look like smoke and mirrors what happened there.
Sure.
And so you'd see those names retired up in the stadium and be like, well, that was bullshit.
Yeah.
But if Shedeur goes and lights it up, Travis goes and lights it up, becomes rookie of the year, Shedeur ends up starting and leading his team to the playoffs.
Yeah.
No one's going to have a problem with what he did.
I ultimately don't think really any CU fans are going to have a problem with this. I think it's kind of like fodder for us.
No, they definitely had a problem with
it. But still, I think you're right, though.
Because what you mentioned before, all those legends who don't have their Cordell Stewart and
Sean Slom,
all those. Well, Sean Slom is the only guy who does.
Oh, he is the only.
But he had to wait like 20 plus years.
That's true. Yeah,
and he won the Heisman.
Yeah,
and he didn't get it right away. But again, one of the arguments is that their coaches should have been advocating for them then and put them in right away, right?
Sure.
We're now people, man.
Sure, we're now people. We need. Oh, speaking of now people, we need to put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah,
that should be like
now people.
Now people.
Yes.
Hey, let's chalk that one up. We're gonna make some now people T-shirts.
It's a now world.
We're a now network. Okay.
Yep. Now, how about we move on to our next topic?
Yeah. So the next topic is kind of it's the juicier of the stories because we want to talk about the draft.
It's Thursday, man. The Broncos draft is Thursday.
I sounded like I was.
Yeah. As a Chiefs fan.
Yeah. Well, 31st pick ain't nothing to show.
Yeah. Oh, because they lost the Super Bowl.
They lost the Super Bowl. Couldn't get that 32 spot.
Kicked,
Couldn't get that. Well. To get your ass kicked in the Super Bowl, you got to be in the Super Bowl. Okay?
Yeah, and then you got to get your ass kicked.
Which they have twice.
What's that?
They have twice.
Yeah, I know, dude.
The Bucks and the Eagles.
That's why Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT stuff going into the game, and it just died so fast. You're not the GOAT anymore, okay? You're not on GOAT trajectory. You're not even GOAT trajectory.
He'll still get on. He'll get back on track.
Will he?
Yeah. Well, he's always going to be on track in my mind. But he'll get back there.
To me, unless he wins like 2 or 3 more.
Yeah.
He will not be better than Joe Montana. Patrick Mahomes, you're fine.
He has to win so many, even just to get in the conversation of Brady. Yeah. And so he's got 3.
Yeah.
And so he needs at least 2 more, I say, to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
And also, he's my GOAT.
And right now, you're just the most recent loser. You know what I'm saying?
Well, first of all, that's fine because I think they have a shot to get back there again, but it doesn't matter. We're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about the future of the Denver Broncos. Okay.
I will say, though, it's always interesting to talk about the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes because you're chasing them. The Broncos are chasing them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man.
Yeah.
And the Chiefs have won this division how many straight years? I mean, 7,
I think it's 7 or 8.
Okay.
So then, that's the thing we were wanting to talk about. All the draft picks previously of the general manager, George Paton.
Yep. George Paton's first year here was 2021. Okay. The year after COVID.
Yep.
Vic Fangio's last year here. Okay. And his very first draft. Well, how about we do this?
Okay.
We're going to rank, we're going to do the top 5 George Paton drafts in his tenure.
Yeah.
Because he's been here for 4 seasons, guys.
How many overall drafts?
31
drafts. Nice.
Picks. Okay. George Paton has chosen 31 picks. And actually, interestingly enough, in his first couple drafts, he had 10 picks. He had 10 picks in his first, 9 in his second, 5 and then 7.
Mm-hmm.
And early on in his tenure here, he would talk about how he liked to have a lot of darts to throw at the dartboard because you never know what's going to hit.
Yep.
And he's had some that have really, really hit. Now, with a trade for Russell Wilson, they traded away their first and second round picks. So they lost picks, right? So they haven't had as many picks. But I still think George Paton has gotten some incredible value. And, he hasn't done it by himself. He's done it in concert with the head coach. But he's had some incredible draft picks, and we're going to go over those right now. Let's start at number 5. Scott, I had a hard time choosing number 5.
Okay.
And so I chose a tie for number 5.
I love this
because I didn't want to leave one of these guys out.
Well, you can't be on the fence about things, but I certainly get this is hard to do. I'm guessing they're different positions. Are they on the same side of the ball or different?
Well, you're about to find
Okay.
out. I got to pull out my handy
Let's
dandy
call it tease,
computer because I
Nick,
got
Nate, as you're doing this.
because I got a little stuff written down about it. But no, my number 5, tie for number 5,
Yep.
is Jonathan Cooper. Let's put Jonathan Cooper up there first. And the reason why Jonathan Cooper made the cut
He
here,
looks so sad there.
he's focused, man.
He wants to be
He's
number 1.
focused. He's focused. Jonathan Cooper was selected in the 7th round of the 2021 draft. Okay, Jonathan Cooper just signed a mega deal and is the starting outside linebacker on the left-hand side for a top 5 defense that led the league in sacks last year.
Yeah.
Jonathan Cooper, an absolute baller, came into the league with a heart condition.
Oh my gosh.
He had like open heart surgery or some crazy stuff, like right before the draft or something like that, and fell pretty deep in the draft. But George Paton saw this guy, took a shot on him, and now he's a starter, and really a very good starter on a very good defense. Tied for number 5 of George Paton's all-time draft list, Jonathan Cooper.
Did you announce what round he was?
Yeah, 7th round.
That's insane.
7th
That is
round,
nuts.
number 239 overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like he's coming out of like, Nowheresville State. I mean, he's coming out of Ohio State, but like to get value that deep in the draft has to be just an absolute slam dunk for Paton.
Yeah. Yep. And so another guy, okay, and the reason why I want to put Jonathan Cooper in there,
this is your other tie. This is your tie. For
this
5.
other guy that I'm about to put in has been a little more productive.
Mhm.
He's made a Pro Bowl, actually back-to-back Pro Bowls.
Love it.
He was Sean Payton's first ever draft pick
Oh,
as a member of the Broncos.
okay.
And they traded up to get him. Tied with Jonathan Cooper for number 5 on George Paton's big board list, Marvin Mims.
Nice.
Marvin Mims, 2nd round pick, number 63 overall in the 2023 draft. Some might think that he deserves to be a little higher on the list than that, but that just goes to show you how awesome some of these other picks have been.
Yeah.
And Marvin Mims, who, last year, back-to-back Pro Bowls as a returner, but last year Sean Payton really seemed to unlock Marvin Mims' capability as an offensive player by creating a special package for him. And Sean Payton likes his special packages.
Yes, I mean, who doesn't?
He does it.
I like my packages big.
Yeah, exactly. And he
Full.
likes them small.
That's true, and fast.
Yeah, and he likes the Joker.
Fast package.
And Marvin Mims worked in the backfield, did a lot of motion stuff, and he found a way to get him the ball in space, which is where Marvin Mims likes it. Just like punt returns, you catch it in space and you make guys miss. He's pretty good at that. We'll see if he continues to get unlocked down the field and more of a route runner. I'd like to see him turn into more of a route runner. But Marvin Mims and Jonathan Cooper tied for number 5 in George Paton's greatest drafts.
So you're saying that like Marvin Mims has lived up to the hype because there's a lot of pressure on those 1st round and 2nd round guys, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think he has. I think he's done everything that was asked of him. There was a lot of frustration around Marvin the first season because he wasn't getting the ball.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't, not just not getting the ball, but he wasn't on the field in valuable minutes and getting like action. Like he wasn't in the action. And it was like, where is Marvin Mims? Why is he not involved in the offense here? And it took Sean Payton a little while to figure out how to use him right. There's also this thing of like, dude, he's a special team standout and a Pro Bowler on special teams.
Yeah. And
when you have a guy like that, there's pressure from the special team side to keep him over here with us.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like
he's a weapon.
Exactly. You take him too much over there. He's tired when he comes over here. He's not as effective, or his head's full of, or he gets hurt over there. He is so valuable as a returner for us. We want to keep him as valuable. And so if you want to use him on offense, make sure you know how to use him.
Yeah.
And they're figuring that out. And so Marvin Mims really came on last year at the end of the season. You remember his and he's not a big guy.
No.
But he mossed the Cincinnati Bengals returner in the end zone basically as time was expiring, or on 4th and goal there, to tie it and send it to overtime against the Bengals there. A game they eventually lost, but it was a very good game and showed, some real fight from this young Broncos team on the road against one of the hottest teams in the NFL at the time, the Cincinnati Bengals. They went toe-to-toe with them, just weren't able to withstand them in overtime. And ultimately, I don't know if you remember this, but Sean Payton had a chance to go for 2 after that.
Yeah.
And he decided to go for 1 and send it to overtime, give Joe Burrow the ball. Joe Burrow went down,
Yeah.
scored, game over, right? But Marvin Mims going up over a defender, 2 defenders really, put him in position to win that game. And so Marvin Mims makes my top 5 George Paton drafts.
So I think
Bronco.
what you're also saying is you're seeing a big year out of Mims this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing like, him
Targets too. A lot
continue
of targets.
to ascend. Yeah. But also like targets are going to be hard to come by in this offense because now you got Evan Ingram involved.
I was gonna say we talked about a deep tight end room.
A new joker. Yeah, they're going to probably draft a tight end.
Deep tight end.
All
right.
Probably hold on.
Yeah,
you're probably going to draft
more.
the joker. Well, what I'm going to say, you're talking about Marvin Mims targets.
No, it's true. We talked about
they're going to add to the room. They're going to add a running back who can catch the ball. So the target's going to be hard to come by. You just got to take advantage of your opportunities and make those big plays when they come.
Love it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to number 4 here. Now, number 4, well, Scott, you have a lot in common with Quinn Miners because your belly looks a lot like the belly. Quinn Miners. Quinn Miners.
Look at him.
Yeah, look at Quinn Miners. So Quinn Miners was a 3rd-round pick, number 98 overall. I thought about putting him a little higher just because he was a diamond in the rough here, Quinn Miners. He was a Division III player.
We love that.
He had to sit out the COVID year. Didn't play a lot of college football at all. I played D3 football.
Yep.
Okay. The biggest difference between D3 football and D1 football, not the receivers, not the quarterback, not the skill position. It was the big boys in the middle. The size of the offensive and defensive linemen. The trenches are so much different at a powerhouse school, D1 program than they are at D3, which makes what Quinn Miners has done in the NFL, becoming an all-pro, signing a huge contract, becoming one of the best offensive linemen in the league. So incredible, so impressive.
Yep.
Not only that, but he's not just happy to be here. He's not the D3 guy who made it and he's just happy to be here. This guy wants to be the best.
Sure.
You talk to him about his goals. He really has a really good perspective about how to get better in the NFL.
Yeah.
He comes out and he tries to work on 3 things every day type of thing. And when you have that mentality, because there's so much in your head as an NFL player when you're making that jump from D3 to the NFL or any college to the NFL, the technical aspect of it, there's so many technical elements to think about.
Yep.
You can become overwhelmed by it. So that happen to guys all the time. But if you take it one thing at a time, and for Quinn Miners, he takes 3 at a time that he tries. I don't know if it's every day, he said, or every season he tries to add these things to his tool belt. But Quinn Miners is an absolute dog off the line of scrimmage. Will drop it on you, drag it over you.
These are like rap lyrics.
Yes, I know. And he's very soft-spoken, sweet guy, and he's a white dude with dreads.
You don't see that a lot.
Yeah,
and he looks good with him. He looks
great.
Yeah,
he's super duper strong and athletic. Very great, very good footwork. So a lot of times these big offensive linemen, they don't have really good footwork.
Yeah,
and they're just lumbering big dudes. No, he's like a ballerina who will F you up. You know what I'm saying?
You've probably met those same kind of guys coming from like the smaller schools. You're probably one of them. I think you were the guy who's like, I'm going to prove that I belong here.
Oh yeah.
Do you see those guys from the smaller schools who are like, just happy to be here, guys?
No, not really.
I think like everyone at that point probably has that dog in him. I'm going to prove to you, I was at a small school, yes, but I also belong.
Yeah. But it's like to get that chance is also rare.
Yeah, sure.
Like, a lot of times like the lower school guy will get on the roster, but he won't get elevated into that spot to really be able to shine. But an offensive line is unique in that way. There's 5 of them. And if you can become part of that unit and show that you can cooperate, learn the system and learn and protect your quarterback, then there's an opportunity there for you.
And I think the proof is in the pudding because like he's a round 3 guy. They didn't see him as like, hey, let's just give him a shot. No, they saw a guy who was like, he could be a starter.
No, and I think they might have traded up to get him too.
Really? Yeah. So that shows probably so much faith, or sorry, kind of so much that they have so much faith in him.
Yeah.
That had to make Quinn Miners feel great.
Yeah. The proof is in the pudding. The evidence is in the custard.
Yeah. There you go.
The findings are in the flan.
Oh my gosh, I need more. I come with that.
The data is in the Jello.
You took evidence away from it. That's all I got. My vocabulary and lexicon is poor.
Well, lexicon's pretty good.
Thanks. Quinn Miners went to Wisconsin Whitewater. Can you name their mascot?
No,
their nickname. They're the Riverhawks.
Riverhawks.
Yeah, that's one of those back pocket ones I have.
Oh, you just looked at your phone though.
No, but it just says Wisconsin Whitewater.
Whatever.
Yeah, it just says Wisconsin.
No, I can't read it from here. Yeah, no.
I think it's a great pick at number 4.
Yeah. Quinn Miners, came in at number 4.
Number 3.
All right, let's go to number 3. Yeah, you know him, you love him, Nick Bonito.
There he is,
Nick Bonito. This was because of the Russell Wilson trade, their first pick in 2022. It was a 2nd round pick. and it was number 64 overall. Now, if you go back and look at this draft of 2022, this was George Paton's worst draft. This was his worst draft. Other than Nick Bonito, man, nobody really hit.
Well, yeah, Dulcich was kind of like looked upon it like being the new tight end, but kind of got injured early on and just never.
It was a dull sitch with that guy, if you know what I meant. If you know what I mean. He was not who they hoped he was.
Wordsmith today.
They hoped he would be that Joker.
Yeah.
He showed some flashes of it. Could not stay healthy, Greg Dulcich, and then ended up falling off. But they drafted Damari Mathis, got some run, ended up falling off. Ioma Uwazurike, I think still on the roster, had to sit out a year for gambling on some games, and that was unfortunate for him. Who knows what his future will be if he'll get another opportunity, but it passes you by pretty quick.
Sure.
And then Delaren Turner-Yell, Montreal Washington, Luke Wattenberg, Matt Henningsen, and Fayon Hicks. Matt Henningsen had some run here for a little while. Luke Wattenberg as well, still around, but none of those guys have made an impression like Nick Bonito has. Nick Bonito is all-pro. Nick Bonito was a second or third in the league in sacks. Nick Bonito's about to get broke off. Nick Bonito had some crazy, huge plays.
I was going to say some highlights last year.
Yes, some game-changing plays, a nose for the football, one pick six, and one fumble. It was called a fumble, but it was double pass return for a touchdown. Incredible plays where he did the Marshawn Lynch in the end zone, grabbed his jump.
Do you want to move your laptop so you can do it?
No, I'm not going to do it. But his teammates love him. He's come into his own. That first season, he was a little bit trying to get his bearings in the NFL and really didn't sort of have the productive season that everyone had hoped. But last year, he just absolutely came on. Now he's on the national scene. Now everyone knows who Nick Bonito is, and Nick Bonito is going to sign a mega deal here pretty soon, and he's going to deserve it. The Broncos led the league in sacks last year. Nick Bonito, a huge reason why. One more fun fact here. Prior to last season, the Broncos hadn't had a 10-sack player since 2018, since Von Miller. Okay, that was 6 or 7 seasons. They had 2 last year. Jonathan Cooper got to 10. Nick Bonito had like 13.5 sacks.
Incredible.
Which is really good. Credit to the entire defense and the scheme as well. But those guys were able to attack and put pressure on the quarterback, and it showed up in big games.
Yeah.
The Broncos' offense was the weak point of the team last year. The defense was the strength. The defense won them games. Without that defense making those opportunistic plays and those sacks and controlling the ball like that, the Broncos would not have been 10-7. The Broncos, as much attention as Bo Nix got, as much attention as Sean Payton in the offense got, it was really the defense that led the charge last season.
Team,
It was. As the Chiefs found out in the last game of the season, I think they scored 0 points, didn't they?
They
got blanked.
I was so far up in the nosebleeds, I couldn't really see. I don't know. I don't really know what happened. Couldn't even read the big board.
That's not why you had a nosebleed, though.
No, I was.
Hey.
Family show.
Yes, but Nick Bonito comes in at number 3 for me.
Yeah.
On George Paton, a guy who's taken a lot of criticism actually because of Russell Wilson, number 1.
Sure.
Traded a lot for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And you remember this was when the conversation was having about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers was supposed to come here. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that.
Well,
but Aaron Rodgers was supposed to come here, and then that fell through at the last minute.
Hackett.
Yeah, Nathaniel Hackett came instead.
Yeah. You got the wrong. You got the wrong
Packer
Rodgers guy. Yeah, he's the wrong Packer.
But remember, Aaron Rodgers was supposed to make a decision on this one day, right? And then on that day, in that morning, it was like, no, I'm staying in Green Bay. Within an hour or two after that, the Russell Wilson trade was announced. It was insane. And obviously, George Paton was instrumental in bringing that to life.
Sure.
Clearly was having conversations with Green Bay while he was having conversations with Seattle. Green Bay falls through. Seattle did not. Russell Wilson had a no-trade clause. He accepted the trade to the Broncos. Who knows what parameters were included in that trade ahead of time?
Yeah.
One of the main criticisms of George Paton, Scott, is that he signed Russell Wilson to that mega deal before ever seeing him play a snap for the Broncos. Okay. He had 2 years left on his deal, and it was like a $28 or $30 million a year deal. They gave him a new contract worth 50 plus or whatever before he ever, like at the end of training camp.
Yeah.
Or it might have been mini camp. His agent put a lot of pressure, set a deadline for that, and George Paton caved. George Paton and company, obviously the new ownership of the Broncos had just taken over. So their first basically big thing that they signed was Russell Wilson's contract. It didn't go well for anyone. And so George Paton took a lot of flack for
Sure.
that one.
Because he kind of hamstrings himself at that point.
And it was
since he's
this
a GM.
obsession with the quarterback, and you
Yep.
got to understand where that comes from, because the Broncos, ever since Peyton Manning left, couldn't find a quarterback. It was Drew Lock, it was Teddy Bridgewater,
Sure.
it was a lot of folks who came through and weren't good enough, and so they were desperate for their guy, and they swung big on Russell. It didn't work, but George Paton had to eat a lot of that. And then there were some other guys that didn't work out. He traded some beloved dudes. Von Miller traded Von Miller. I think that worked out though in their favor, even though Von went and got a Super Bowl elsewhere. But George Paton has made some really solid moves, and I wanted to highlight those. And really, he's kind of found a good partner in Sean Payton.
Yeah.
One more thing I want to mention before we get into top 2 draft picks of George Payton's tenure. All right.
I mean, that came out of nowhere.
Well,
Top 2
came out of somewhere.
Yeah.
My
heart.
mouth. My mouth.
Your heart.
No, wow, what was I going to mention? Dang. Oh, yeah. A general manager doesn't just work in a vacuum. They don't just do it by themselves.
Yeah.
They have a scouting department. They have the coach, the head coach, who has a vision on what he wants. They have the coordinators, the type of players they want. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
If you're not a good collaborator, you're not going to be a good GM. You're not just saying, here's the players I like, you got to find a way to use them. No, you got to say, who are the players we like that are going to fit your scheme? I want to go find those guys. Now I'm going to tell you about some players I found that I think are going to work for what you like. And you're going to have to trust me for some of the back end of the draft guys, some day 3 guys. Sean Payton's not scouting every single college player in the country.
Yeah.
That's to George Paton and his staff, up to them to do. Sean Payton is he coaches the guys they get, right? Of course he has some input on it. But the point I was making was his George Payton's first year here, it was Vic Fangio. He was collaborating with Vic Fangio on what Vic Fangio's system was going to look like, right? And Pat Shurmur was the offensive coordinator. So he's trying to get players that are going to fit into Shurmur's offense and Fangio's defense.
Yeah.
Fangio gets fired after that year. Then Nathaniel Hackett comes in. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't know what the hell he wants. He just wants to eat pizza and ice cream and go bowling.
Yeah.
Right? And
It's
play
hilarious.
some skee ball.
Yep.
Right? And have field day. That's what Nathaniel Hackett wanted. Nathaniel Hackett was like Ernest P. Worrell. Okay?
Ernest goes to minicamp.
Yes. That's what he was.
Yeah.
He was not a head coach. He had a lot of great, crazy ideas, man. But none of them had been ever done before.
Yeah.
And none of them worked. And so that was George Paton's worst draft.
Sure.
It was the one where he was collaborating with Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
He had one one hit on that one. And that was Nick Bonito.
Yep.
And so the second one, the last 2 drafts have been Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton. Now they're getting their groove. Now they're getting guys that they want to get.
Yep.
And now they're hitting their groove, so to speak.
You've teased it long enough.
All
I
right.
need the top 2.
And I don't think Bronco fans have a lot of confusion about who these 2 guys are.
I'm just wondering where you're going to put them.
I'm putting Pat Surtain as number 2.
Oh, I had it mixed up. I tried to do a mock what I thought you were going to do.
You're going to do Bo. You thought I was going to do Bo.
I thought it was going to be PS2 and then Knicks.
Look, Pat Surtain, defensive player of the year, was a no-brainer. Now, Bo Nix was not a no-brainer, and obviously Bo Nix is going to be number 1 on this list. But I'll talk about Pat Surtain and the reason why he's not number 1. And I almost put him actually a little further back because he was a first-round pick. He was the number 9.
The first pick ever, right? For George Paton?
George Paton's first pick ever. He was a number 9 pick overall. But it took some cojones for George Paton to make that pick. Why? Because the Broncos needed a quarterback at the time. They did not have a quarterback, and Justin Fields was on the board, and I think Mac Jones was still on the board or whatever it is. The future or has borne out his wisdom or whatever.
No, I know what you mean.
He
made able to see, because they always say like 3 years after a draft, then you can grade that draft.
Yeah, and he made the right decision there. And so it speaks to what his philosophy is. And George Paton was quoted as saying this week. It gives you the opportunity to select the guy you have graded the highest at any position because he makes your team better. We talked about that last week.
Yep.
Not last year. Last week, Scott. Best player available versus position of need. When he drafted Pat Surtain, he did not go for position of need. Nope. They were actually deep at corner at the time.
Yep.
They had signed Ronald Darby. They'd signed this other guy who's a veteran. They had actually some corners. They drafted him because they loved him.
Yeah. And
George Paton knew the kind of guy he was. He knew his father, Pat Surtain Sr., the first, who had played in Miami and was an incredible corner. He knew Pat Surtain's the cut of his jib, the kind of kid he was, the kind of work ethic, the kind of talent. And so he didn't look at him once. He didn't send a scout over there once. He didn't call him once, not one visit, not one workout, because he knew he was going to draft him. And he did. And he's become the best defensive player in the NFL, but only the number 2 draft pick in George Paton's tenure.
So do you think that, like, real quick before we get to your number 1, do you think that Patrick Surtain dropped to number 9? Because, like, did they see him going before that? Do you think?
They didn't know. They don't really know at that time.
They just knew that they wanted him if he was there.
He was not the first corner taken.
Yeah.
The dude, J.C. Horn was taken ahead of him.
Nice.
In Carolina. Not nice. Not nice for them. They made the wrong decision.
Nice
for the Broncos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I think the mocks had him going around.
Yeah.
Then. And the Broncos were hoping he would fall because they liked him the whole time. They eyed him the whole entire time.
And they got him.
And, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was also eyeing him the entire time.
Nice.
When I saw him play at Alabama, I said, that's your guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy. That is the guy because he reminded me a lot of Champ Bailey, and he still does. Calm demeanor, even keel, doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low, always in the right place, very physical, will come up and make a tackle, is a ball hawk, is very smart. Wants to study and get better every single year.
In college.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, Pat Surtain is going to be here for a long time, and he's a really incredible player to have on the team, but only number 2 for George Paton in his drafts. So, let's do number 1.
Andy, we need a drum roll. We don't have a drum roll. I'm just
drum roll, please. The number 1 draft pick in George Paton's tenure is that man right there.
There he is.
Bosif Nix. Is that his real name, you think?
I hope so.
Bosif.
Bocephus. Oh, Bocephus would be good.
Bosif Nix. We got our
Bocephus
guy,
Nix.
right? We got our guy. You talk to people in the know, and they say there's 3 pillars of an NFL organization that you have to get in place before you can build around it.
Yep.
Those 3 pillars are punter, holder, and
that's right. The Holy Trinity, as they
call it. What's up, Brandon? Come on in, man. Oh, whatever. Just come on in and sit your butt down. Okay, so anyway, talking Bo here. Bo Nix, the Broncos have needed a quarterback for a long time, as we were talking about before. Bo Nix was the 6th quarterback taken. The 6th quarterback taken in the draft. People thought that the Broncos would be overdrafting by selecting him number 12 where they had him. But Bo was selected by George Paton and Sean Payton and has been able to galvanize this team, create that leadership in the pocket, and allow guys to rally around a dude. And now guys want to come here because of him. Evan Ingram signed here because of that. And now you have that one of those 3 pillars and you're ready to go. And so that is number 1. Bo Nix is number 1.
Yeah.
In my top 5 George Paton draft.
You've been high on Nix out of college. You were saying that was the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
The Broncos were going to make.
I knew they were going to draft him. He seemed to me like a Sean Payton guy from the jump. His skill set, his ability to get rid of the ball, his technical sort of acumen.
Yeah.
When I saw him on the and we welcome Brandon Cristal to the show.
Cristal,
hi. You shaved off your Zelensky beard.
It'll grow back.
Yeah. You got to get the black mock tee and then freaking.
They'll make you a Gorilla Sports one for me.
Yeah, because we have merch right now.
Yeah, we do.
Shop.gorillasports.net.
Yeah, can we throw that merch up there again?
Throw the merch up there. Look at that.
Shirt.
Yeah,
Zelensky. But it says Gorilla Sports.
We'll just put, instead of the Joker hoop face, we'll just put yours up there with the beard.
Those are pretty cool. What's your favorite shirts, guys?
I like the Luck the Fakers. That's a really great one.
Yeah.
Then also Best Bar in Town, which means Coors Field.
Yeah.
And then probably Coach.
The Coach one I like a lot.
The hair is
too.
great. The flow is just killing it.
Bedsy. There've been a lot of really good Joker ones that just exist, and we hope we'll make some more. But there's a lot that are out there, so I like ours. But I think the Bedsy one was the first one that really.
And the Both Rows is
Both Rows
is a no-brainer to me.
I like,
especially if you're of a certain age that remember the Bono's campaign.
Yep.
I like Incomplete because they do that at the games. You know, Incomplete. Well, great job working on that, Scott.
Thanks. It's been fun.
Yeah, and how do people find that?
Oh, they find it online at shop.gorillasports.net.
Well, and I have credit to just us as a team being the first people in town to come up with the idea of making like fun, cool sports.
Yeah, no one's done that, right?
So
no one else has done that.
Us being trendsetters. Again.
Yeah.
We are. We set the trends.
Some people are crying tears of just whatever. But
I'm sorry that they hate competition.
Yeah, man.
I like cool shirts. I like cool shirts.
Do you like to play a game where you're the only team on the field? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I think they do.
You never lose, but
You don't win either.
But you don't win either.
But you tell each other how great you are.
We don't announce them. We just call them the consonants.
Call that practice.
All right. Did you hear my top 5 George Paton drafts of his tenure? How do you feel about that? You want to rearrange the order or knock anybody out?
Give me 5. I walked in right as Pat. Pat
So I had a tie for 5. It was Marvin Mims and Jonathan Cooper.
Okay.
No. Jonathan Cooper and
Marvin
you had Mims at 4, I thought.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Nope. You
Miners.
were hosting the show.
I was trying
Number
to.
4, Miners,
Miners,
Quinn
yeah.
Miners. Number 3, Nick Benito.
Mm.
Number 2, Pat Surtain, and number 1, Bo Nix.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the Broncos are in really good shape. You're talking about the pillars of a franchise.
Yeah.
And so ownership, they've got arguably what we think might end up turning into the best owner in the NFL
Sure.
in terms of resources and the way they approach this, not meddling too much, just being aware. So we'll see. But new practice facility, great for players, great for the business. New stadium at some point will be great for everybody, hopefully. So you got the owner, you got the GM who's killed it with all his drafts. Even as you're having to talk about his worst draft because he collaborated with Nathaniel Hackett, he still got good players out of that draft, just not as many as he got in his other 3 drafts to this point.
Yep.
Your head coach, this is likely Sean's last job. How long he's here, whether that's 5 years, 8 years, 10, 12.
Yeah.
And now you've got what you think to be your franchise quarterback sitting courtside at game 1 of the Nuggets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning was sitting across from him, but in the second row.
Oh,
Wow.
Peyton didn't get
Already forgotten about your Super Bowl champion quarterback,
No,
guys.
the funny thing is, obviously Peyton will sit lots of places. I think Peyton either has a line on those tickets or friend because I've seen he and his wife there with the kids.
Yeah.
He was there with his son and a couple friends. So Peyton's in the seats. He's often in. Bo was a guest of Ibotta, the jersey sponsor, and was sitting in those seats that you'd sometimes see like the mayor in.
Sure.
So that's anyway.
I bought a pair of tickets for Bo.
There you
to
go.
to
There you
the,
go.
game
So,
as well.
and I had the idea, and I actually talked to one of the game people. I'm like, why not have Rocky grab a football, have Peyton sign it, then run it over to Bo and have Bo throw it out? They're like, oh, we don't have that many footballs on hand. I was like, well, poor planning.
That
Yeah.
football.
You mean one football?
Did just a
Cross
football.
I-25. You
I
can
was,
get
like,
some.
I was like, just go to.
Or 2 with the basketball. And they just
And it was
toss the
a day,
basketball.
but it was a day game, so everything was open. It wasn't like an 8:00 start. I was like, just run over
Send
to
someone to Dick's and get
Yeah.
yourself a sport.
or a sports fan right there.
Let
right next to
Bo
the stadium.
climb that 3-story ladder.
Run to
and
the
throw it-
Broncos team store,
and
which
do
was
the Rocky
probably
shot.
open. The Broncos team store was open.
Yeah.
And okay, but so Bo, you now have the quarterbacks. You got those 4 pillars, but then your 4 pillars of a roster: quarterback,
Yep.
lockdown corner, left tackle, unless
Yeah.
the quarterback's right-handed, but left tackle, premier pass rusher, and they have all 4 of those, which makes the draft so much more fun in terms of where they can go.
Yeah.
But you've got to. I know that Garrett Bowles is older than the rest of the guys that your young building blocks, but he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to be here for 4 or 5 years. We know tackles can play well into their 30s.
Yeah.
You played with some guy like Matt Lepsis,
Yep.
played for a long time. They just,
How old is Garrett? Is he 31?
I think he's right around 30. He may be a little, I think he's 32.
Okay.
And he got,
He was an older rookie. Too.
yeah, he had a not a straight line to the NFL.
Right.
He had a different path that he's certainly chronicled. But so because you have all that, you have to credit George Paton for his roster building and Sean Payton now if they've worked together. And then just credit kind of the whole team, the organization, that as long as Bo Nix is the guy, and you got to think that he is, similar to what you have with your Chiefs.
Mhm.
We don't like to remind people that Scott's
We've
a
already
Chiefs
referenced
fan.
him.
Yeah, we
Uh,
already mentioned it a couple
But
times.
once you
It's
have
in my
when
contract.
you have,
Yeah.
but you know what they don't have?
Yeah.
They have an elite pass rusher. Chris Jones comes from the inside, then on the edge,
Yeah.
but they have Chris Jones, so that counts. And we think the McDuffie kid might be there as a corner. You certainly don't have the left tackle or haven't had him consistently.
No, having had to consistently.
And that's the thing is like they drafted Eric Fisher years ago at number 1, but then his career ran and you had Orlando Brown. And it's like, but the Broncos have had, and Garrett Bowles doesn't miss a lot of time other than a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So they're in really good shape. And George Paton, even from his first draft here with PS2, then that second draft, getting Coop in the 7th, getting Baron Browning and Quinn Miners, trading up for Javonte, who was a heck of a pick at the time.
Yeah, he didn't pan out.
Well, yeah, but that's an injury. I think the injury is really what slowed him down more than anything because
But
he was
you still, like, when you look back, you take all that into consideration.
you
the
have
kind of
to.
pro they become, right?
Yeah, but I think George Paton is excelled in the draft.
Yeah, and there were people calling for like his head a couple years ago.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
which is actually as recently as a year ago. which
because
is
of the
insane.
Russ thing,
Yeah,
more than anything.
and it's not his fault. That's not his fault.
Not totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we talked about how the new contract may have been a little bit hasty, but you also don't know what stipulations they had discussed with the agent and prior to the trade. He had a no trade clause, right? So were they like, we're going to give you a new deal? Maybe
Yeah.
there was a gentleman's handshake involved in that trade. You never know. But
And
Bo Nix-
everybody's making that deal.
right,
All the GMs are making that. I mean, for the
Right.
most part.
and they're sitting pretty right now. You know who else is sitting pretty? Accurate America. Guys, you never know when and where the hail is going to hit. It could happen at any season. when the summer storms come, especially that hail is going to damage your roof. And the last thing you want is to be caught scrambling when that does happen. It happened to me. We had to figure it out. Don't be like me and have to figure out after the fact. Make the call before the storm, guys. Call Accurate America. That's right, Accurate America. They'll partner with you on navigating insurance, which isn't fun at all. That can be a headache. Accurate America will help you with that. They'll provide quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling, and their work is guaranteed as long as you own your home, guys. Don't scramble at the last minute. Call Accurate America now, 303-900-ROOF before the storm. That's 303-900-ROOF. Get it before the storm. Accurate America.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
And speaking of accurate,
yeah,
Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Accurate quarterback. Brandon, before we get out of here, what do you think they're going to do in the draft? Obviously, we talk about the number one pick. That's only one pick. And as you noticed, most of these picks that we've talked about weren't number one picks. It was Bo and Pat, but the other guys, round 2, round 3, Jonathan Cooper, round 7. Do you think they're going to try to help Bo out with a weapon early on, maybe in a day 2 draft pick, or maybe even 1?
Maybe 1 if you believe Adam Schefter, and nobody's plugged into the league more than Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Jay Glazer, all those guys. But so Adam went through his kind of pre-draft buzz, and we know this is the lying season, and so you can only believe so much. But if you're hearing it from enough people, and when Adam's going to be comfortable saying this, because teams have no problem talking about other teams,
sure.
And so he's saying that the Broncos are one of the couple teams that have called around about moving up. Now, they may be doing that just as a smokescreen, get people to jump them because there's somebody they think they're going to get at 20. We saw that a couple of years ago with John Elway, where they got the Jets to jump up, and that allowed Bradley Chubb to fall to them, but because there was thought that maybe the Broncos would jump up, and so they got a team to move. And so it might be that, or they might be interested. You have to think if they're going to move up, it's for either Ashton Genty or Tyler Warren, and how far they're willing to move up. But Adam's not putting that out there if he hasn't heard it from multiple teams that have told him, yeah, the Broncos have called because they're curious, would we be willing to trade back if there are players there?
Yeah, Ashton Genty talked about how the Broncos were interested in him, right? To me, it's not a fit. It's not a fit because
he's 5'9".
No, I love short kings, man. No, dude, because Sean Payton doesn't like a bell cow back. He's not that guy. So why trade up and trade future picks and future players? They're going to they give you more options for one guy that really does need the ball 20 to 25 times a game. He's not a guy you give him 11 carries a game and you're using him the right way. Those running backs like Ashton Genty, they want to get a lather going. They want to get into the game. They want to wear you down. And in the second half, like Derrick Henry, completely different body type, but that's when he goes off. Sean Payton is adding weapons to his freaking weapon belt
arsenal.
Belt, Batman belt.
Like Evan Ingram, that's dispersing the ball a little more. They're going to add another tight end, maybe another receiver. Like, where is there enough balls to go around for Ashton Genty to be actually used if they trade up and get him?
Probably not, just because of how he uses running backs. Even the running backs that he's taken in the first round, it's only been 2. They both had Heismans, and that was Reggie Bush in year 1 that they didn't expect to fall to 2. But Reggie wasn't a bell cow. He induced McAllister with a 1-2 punch. And then Mark Ingram, same thing. It was Mark Ingram, and it was a bunch of other backs. I think it was a little bit of Kamara, but even a couple others when he first got there ahead of Kamara.
But those guys felt to him, right? Like they didn't trade up for it.
Right. They didn't trade up for a running back. And Sean just isn't wired to trade up for a running back. I think he traded up for Marcus Davenport. I think there are certain positions you might, and maybe it is someone like Tyler Warren that if he slips into the teens, you're like, okay, now I've got another joker, and I know I'm going to find this running back because this is a running back rich draft. Trayvon Henderson's one I like the most. Now people are saying he may be in the first round. I don't think he makes sense at 20 because I don't think any running back other than Genty makes sense at 20.
Yeah.
And so maybe they lose out on Henderson, but just throughout the draft, there's a bunch of running backs, actually a bunch of tight ends too, that are all kind of bunched together. We talk about Warren and Loveland, but Jason Taylor, who's a guy that I'm sure you at least played against, the Hall of Famer, his kid, been rising up the board. Mason Taylor,
and
he's tight end out of LSU.
And Jason Taylor married Zach Thomas's sister.
Yeah, I believe they're now divorced, but yes.
Oh, they are.
I believe that's his mom, though. Like Zach Thomas
that's what I mean. Yeah,
Zach Thomas is his uncle. So
that's
he's got an uncle in the Hall of
DNA.
Fame. Yeah, an uncle in the Hall of Fame and a dad in the Hall of Fame. So yeah, Mason Taylor. He's not going to make sense at 20 either. But is he the third tight end taken? There's a couple guys with local ties. Gunnar Helm, he could get in the middle rounds. Cherry Creek played for Dave Logan, played at Texas. Terrence Ferguson from Littleton played at Heritage. With Bo Nix was all Pac-12 tight end a year ago, and then third team all Big Ten this year. So there's tight ends kind of throughout. I think they are going to add a running back for sure, and they are going to add a tight end. It's just, is all that done by the end of Friday versus into Saturday? We're getting your depth.
I think if you identify a tight end out there with the skill set you like, you get them. You get your tight end of the future now if you can. Evan Ingram is on the other side of 30. He's not a really complete tight end. He's a joker guy. He's, he has uncanny or uncommon receiving skills at the tight end position. He's faster. He's more quick twitch. He runs like a receiver.
Be seen as a mentor to the new guy.
Yeah, and he's got a ton of experience. He's played a lot of snaps for different organizations, different, coordinators and systems and stuff like that. But you want to draft and develop, in my opinion, an all-around tight end, like a guy like George Kittle, who's going to be here for a decade, who's going to be the point of attack on blocking, but also a transcendent receiving tight end. And that's going to take him a couple years to figure that out. Very rarely does a rookie tight end come in and tear the doors off. Is that
Sure.
Well, and we've seen, but when they do, it's in recent years, and they're all Iowa guys, because you mentioned Kittle.
Yeah.
But Laporta certainly as a rookie, but not as a complete tight end, as a pass catcher.
He had a regression in year 2, though.
It seemed like it.
A little banged up, I guess. But.
And former Lion and former Iowa Hawkeye TJ Hawkinson now, but came in and obviously impactful as a rookie. But if you go back, and I got to give Andrew Mason the credit for this, and this is now a few years ago, but he did this research since 1980. Rookie tight ends, including the great Tony Gonzalez, who played right away, average, and this I'm kind of trying to remember now, but it was like 3 touchdowns, 33 catches, and like 300 to 500 yards, and it was pretty set that first round tight ends forever. It's hard to really get totally involved because they're not good enough blockers, or if they're really great blockers, they're certainly not developed as route runners and pass catchers. And then that skewed a little because of these guys that have come in with so much polish to their pass catching game. And that's where I think Loveland is, as well as Warren and even Mason Taylor. Like, I don't know how many of them are really full, complete tight ends. And if you're a block first guy, well, they already have Adam Troutman, so you don't really need to draft that guy.
Who do you think the best tight end out of this draft is?
I think it's Warren, because he feels like he's the most complete and can be the next George Kittle. Loveland feels like if you put him with Evan Ingram, you're going to have kind of 2 Evan Ingrams. He's taller and a little bigger, and maybe a willing blocker, but he's not gonna block. I mean, maybe he's Travis Kelce type.
Sure.
And Travis Kelce's not a willing blocker.
No. Not these days, not anymore.
No.
I think there was a stretch where it was like Gronk, I think, is at the top of the list because Gronk could block like a tackle, but then was just as impossible to guard as anyone.
And when you have those different skill sets, and you don't need to be a road grading blocker. You need to be, like you said, a willing blocker and good enough at the point of attack to run at you or behind you, and you be able to clear the way. But when that happens and you're good at that, then the play action pass is much more effective, and it opens things wide up. And that's what Sean.
Hey, look how wide up.
We're mixing metaphors.
That guy is. He was so
Welcome to Mixing Metaphors with Nate Jackson.
The comparison for Warren was Jeremy Shockey, and I think Jeremy Shockey probably falls into that, like a willing blocker. Jason Witten, I think, was a pretty good.
He was a great blocker,
technician.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this though, as someone who played that position and are certainly a pass catcher more primarily, how much can technique help you become, with the willingness, even if you're not the most dominant physical, specimen to walk the earth, built like Gronk, but if you're 6'3" to 6'5" and whatever, 240 to 260, to where you can contribute in the run game, or the passing game, but blocking,
the technique is really, really important, because the willing part is, it's going to make you, aggressive and have some good pop from here and from now and then, but you're not going to hang with your block and make an effective block on these behemoths unless you understand technically how to subdue them. The willing stuff is just, that's effort, and coaches like the effort. But if you want to become a good blocker, you have to work on your technique, and that's your foot placement, your hand placement, your pad level, your hat placement. They call it a hat. It's not a hat. It's a helmet.
Let's get a hat on a hat.
Yeah. Your hip height, and you dropping your hips, and then the way you're holding your body. Like, a lot of times young tight ends, just down in their 3-point stance, where they're going based on the lean of their body and their 3-point stance. You can't tip that off at all. And that's something that actually takes years to figure out, to actually make everything look exactly the same in your stance. Whether I'm going left, whether I'm going right, whether I'm firing off and trying to run a route right down the seam, or whether I'm getting back and trying to protect. You want your stance to look the same all the time. And then you want to be able to with your eyes, even look off a defensive end. If I'm trying to get, if I'm trying to cut block him or get or reach him or something, and I don't have the angle, I gotta like look over here real quick and then get in front of him. Your quickness, your technique is huge with that. I was always the undersized guy, whoever I was blocking, and I needed to have hat placement, hit him first, hold him in the right spot, because you're always holding. You're never not holding
Right.
when you're blocking.
It's just a question of
whether they're breaking away. When they're breaking away, then you got to let them go. But when they're in here, you can hold everybody. Everybody's holding on every play, especially the Chiefs, right?
As little brother likes to remind me.
Yeah,
except in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but they don't call the Chiefs. They don't call the Chiefs for the holds.
Sure.
They do call the other teams for doing the things that everyone
Just
does.
Broken record.
Only when they're playing.
Can I ask? These are again kind of nerdy tight end questions, but when you were working, or in general, if you're coming in as a young tight end, do you want to spend more time with the elite tackles or even guards, but your teammates that are really good technicians? Do you want to talk to the tight ends coach? And I think sometimes I know coaches can become good regardless of their background, but I think their background might matter. Or the O-line coach, or one of the O-line coaches. I'm saying to become a better blocker, how do you want to spend the most time if you can?
The O-line tolerates you. They tolerate the tight end. There's some tight ends who are just like, kind of de facto offensive linemen that they really appreciate.
Yeah.
But the guys who are like pass receiving tight ends, who are learning to block or becoming better blockers, they don't really love having you next to them, but they do appreciate your effort. And when you improve and make their life easier, it's something that they respect. You all watch film together. You all do 9-on-7 together. You're all doing those running drills together. So when you go watch film, you're hearing from the offensive line coach. A lot of times it's the offensive line coach going over that run footage or that run tape at practice. So you're getting coached up by the offensive line coach and your own tight end coach. When you go in the tight end room, you're hearing from both of those guys. You don't really get with the tackle necessarily too much, because their technique is just a little bit different from yours. You have different assignments. Now,
you're almost never dropping back, right? Unless it's like a max
very
protect.
Rarely, yeah. And if they put you out on an island against the defensive end, that's a bad probably play call.
How many times have you watched a game where they're like, well, they shouldn't have that tight end one-on-one with Jason Taylor?
What
right?
happened with Kelsey? It happened with Kelsey in the Super Bowl. He just laid him. He was out there on an island against, I forget who, but it just didn't work out. Sorry, I keep bringing this up.
I mean, it's okay.
But it's hard for any tight end to block one of these guys.
Sure.
Like, they get paid to rush the quarterback. We don't get paid to necessarily pass protect. That's the last skill that we have, and we rarely get asked to do that. And if you do are asking your like light in the ass tight end to do that, you're making a mistake there. You probably should put your big boy out there if you want to do that. But it's something that you work on every day. You get a little bit better every day. Like we were talking about, like Quinn Miners has these things he has to work on.
Yeah.
So for a guy who's a really good pass receiver, like we were talking about Dulcich earlier and why he failed. But Greg Dulcich didn't need to come in here and think about how to excel in the passing game. He already knew how to do that. That was going to come naturally to him. He was going to get scripted plays to go. And you saw it at practice last year in training camp. He had a really good training camp because it's scripted that way. You're going to get open, guy. Yeah. You're better than these guys. You're faster than these guys. You know how to run routes. It's the other stuff you got to work on. Your weaknesses that you got to work on. A lot of people don't get that, not just in sports, but in life. They want to lean on their strengths and not work on the things they're not good at. In sports, you will get exposed for the things you're not good at.
Sure.
Professional sports, when you get to the top level, you may think that you're like a really good player. You get to the top and you realize that you're not as good as you thought you were at the thing you thought you were great at. And the thing that you're not good at, they know you're not good at that. Yeah. So they're coming at that thing. They're going to exploit that thing. So every day at practice, you got to work on the thing you're not as good at and get better at that to become a more complete player. That's what coaches are looking for. That's what scouts, that's GM, George Paton is looking for. Players who are going to be hard workers and come to work every day trying to get better. Because none of these guys are complete players coming out of college. They all are works in progress. And so far, the Broncos have found those guys and turned them into great football players.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably, we're going to wrap it up. Before we do, though, we're going to get out of here.
Yeah.
We're going to end this. We're going to end this tightly. It's a tight end.
Tight.
But Thursday. Draft. You guys do anything special? What are you doing?
We're doing a lot special.
We're doing a lot special. Okay. We got a show that morning as usual.
Love it.
Yep. And then we got a extravaganza that night.
Little watch party or
little watch party.
Okay.
Watch along. Yeah, watch along.
Yeah. Love it. We're gonna do a watch along for the draft, for the first round of the draft until the Broncos get their man. We'll talk about that person and how he fits with the organization. Then we're gonna switch over into the Nuggets coverage, and we're gonna cover the Nuggets game, and we're gonna do a post game for the Nuggets playoff game.
That is an extravagant.
It actually is going to time out almost about perfectly because that game tips at 8 and the draft ends about 10:30, which
Yeah.
is right about when the Nuggets Clippers game 3 in LA
A lot going on.
will end.
Yeah.
So we'll be covering all of it. So you just stay locked in.
We're doing a lot here at
Gorilla.
Gorilla, and we got the merch.
The
for
merch.
you
So
guys.
yeah, visit shop.gorillasports.net and go get your off-field merch because we've got it all.
Yeah, she's gonna throw that up real quick so we can just see that one more time for you guys.
Look at those. Bow leave. Bow throws. PS2 incomplete.
And I believe that the show is now over.
Over. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
With flowers.